Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I've got Logan with me. Logan, are you here now? Yeah, so Logan is having some technical issues. We'll all get that stuff sorted. A bunch of stuff's been happening all over the place, but it's been a great week for gaming news, especially on the Xbox front. There's been so much, and we're going to be talking about the GRPG stuff, which there's a surprising amount of GRPG Xbox news. And I think the reactions we've seen online with the Ubisoft stuff, Splinter Cell, which I could rant about that all day, which we'll obviously talk about. But all in all, good week for gaming news. Not really anything bad that I can really think of off the top of my head. But before we get into all the news topics, we're going to talk about what we've been playing now. Logan, are you back yet? Internet issues. It's a thing. We'll get it sorted. So this past week's been really interesting because I've been playing all sorts. So there was a game that came out a few weeks ago on Xbox, and it kind of flew underneath the radar, and nobody's really talking about it. And I'm kind of doing a part 1 review this week, part 2 next week, because it's quite a big game. It's called Akimbot. Akimbot is basically a third-party Ratchet and Clank style game. It's a 3D platformer where you go to various different worlds, and basically it's your job to save the galaxy from an evil guy trying to get a hold of a device that will help, take over the universe. And this galaxy, by the way, is completely populated by robots. Weird, it's kind of a weird thing for a game, but it works. It's actually a surprisingly fun game. There'll be gameplay up in a moment. But Akimbot, if you've been looking for a Ratchet and Clank style game on Xbox, this is it. It's actually really cool. I'm just surprised nobody's talking about it. And it did have one issue at launch with frame pacing. Thankfully, they fixed that basically a few days after launch. So all issues aside, it's a fun game, third-person combat, 3D platforming. I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm about 70% through the game, but it's a fun game. So if you're looking for something like that, I believe there's footage on screen right now. As you can tell, it's clearly inspired, I'm doing air quotes, of Ratchet and Clank. It plays like Ratchet and Clank. It kind of looks like Ratchet and Clank, and it even has the same type of humor as Ratchet and Clank. Like literally, I'm looking at this right now, and yes, this is Ratchet and Clank. But it's fun though. It's really fun, and I think that a lot of people, if they're looking for a 3D platformer that's a bit different on Xbox, this is definitely one to pick up. It's kind of cheap as well on Xbox. I think in the UK it's going for about £16, somewhere around there. But yeah, very cool game. Very cool game. Highly recommended. And I'll have a final review next week on the channel. Now, another game I've been playing is a new Metroidvania game that's on Xbox, and it's called Darklight. It's a 2.5D kind of voxel-based platformer. It's hard to explain, but if you like games like Castlevania, games with a challenge, this is definitely it. It's sci-fi, but gothic. It's a very unique tone, so if you like things like dark, gritty, cyberpunk, much like the anime Blame, which that came out a long time ago, but it's got the same sort of style, where everyone is basically de-evolved into these futuristic monsters where people are part machine, part alive at the same time. It's a very cool game. Very cool. But if you're like me and you're terrible at games like that, like I love the game. I'm really enjoying it, but I am awful at at Metroidvania games now. I don't know why. But fun game, gorgeous visuals, and I highly recommend it. People should check it out. Again, I was provided the review code of Akimbot by Keymailer, and the creators of Darklight were graceful enough to give me a code. But I'll shout those games out because they are very different. I kind of ranted about this today on Boom's podcast. Gaming news isn't gaming news anymore. Gaming news in 2024 is it's leaks, rumors most of the time, and it's never anything positive. It's not talking about features of upcoming games. It's not talking about the, highlights and trailers. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of tired of it. I'm kind of tired of the modern state of gaming news, which is just awful. It's awful. It's negative constantly, and I think other people are getting sick of it as well. To the point now where some people just don't want to pay attention to game news. That's why I like to cover certain games on the channel before we get into the big topics, because one, it's fun, and let's face it, at the end of the day, if you pay attention to gaming news and those games come out, maybe you want to hear about them, and that's what I want to provide on the channel. Let's see if we can get Logan. Logan, are you there yet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Logan.
here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, your audio is kicking in and out a bit.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, your audio's kicking in and out though. We'll get it sorted. I mean, technical issues during the live podcast, it kind of just happens at the end of the day. Just jump out and jump back in, whatever helps. But yeah, games. I've also been playing Fallout 4. Shocker to no one. Uh, I think it might annoy people that I'm just enjoying this game so much, because Fallout New Vegas has had this like unparalleled love by the community for 15 years, about that. And like, people talk about New Vegas all the time and how amazing of a game it is. And like, I've always been a Fallout 3 guy. I think Fallout 3 is one of the best games ever made, and I always recommend it to people. You know, I can't wait for the quote-unquote remaster/remake we're going to get next year. But I think that games like Fallout, they are rare. And when the Fallout TV show came out, everyone online was like scrambling, wanting new Fallout content, to the point where Fallout 4 was the best-selling game in all of Europe. Like, a 9-year-old game was the best-selling game in all of Europe. Crazy if you think about it, considering we always told that old games, nobody likes them. And we have this game from 2015, which was breaking the charts again. Crazy. All in that time, people were wanting brand new Fallout content. And there's me. I've had this new Fallout game right there, which I just never got round to playing properly. I didn't play it for a dumb reason. And, excuse me, and I've been playing it for the past several months. An hour here, an hour there. And I think it might end up being one of my favorite games of all time. Like, it's incredible, just the exploration element. And bear in mind, I'm a Fallout 3 fan. I love that world, but that entire map is grey, green, and yellow all at the same time. And as much as I love that game, the map is pretty much it's bland, But Fallout 4, you have these distinct like monuments you can see from miles away. You can, like, buildings have colour. Grass, where there is some, is actually green. The whole colour palette of the game is just really nice and refreshing from a Fallout 3 fan perspective, which I bloody love. I really love Fallout 4, and I haven't even touched the expansions yet. I haven't really touched the expansions, and people keep telling me that Far Harbor is even better than the base game. I don't know how you'd actually make that better, but I absolutely love my experience with 4 so far. I have a feeling I'm about 70% through the main story, but for other Bethesda games, it's all about the gameplay experience and the exploration element. That's, for me. So, like, when it came to Skyrim, yeah, it had a decent plot, but the side quest is what makes Skyrim Skyrim. Elder Scrolls Oblivion, I thought the main story was amazing, but I thought the side quests were kind of boring. So it goes back and forth. But Fallout 4, like, yes, the main quest is intriguing, it's interesting. The fact that your son or your child is stolen from you, and you can just spend hours of that game just wandering the wasteland, completely forgetting that happened. And I love how, like, morbid that is. But yeah, it's funny at the same time, and I think that's something that's really appealing for Fallout as a franchise. It's that, yeah, it is extremely bleak. It's horrific what happens to these people with the ghouls and super mutants and whatnot. But it's also fun at the same time. It shouldn't work. You'd think those tones would clash, but yeah, I love Fallout 4. It's probably gonna be one of my favorite games of all time, which that's saying a lot, because Fallout 3 for me came out at the right time, and there was no other game like Fallout on the market, Fallout 3. So, like, I have this, like, gem here, which has just been sitting on my shelf for 9 years. Well, everyone's, like, talking about needing a new Fallout game, and I just had it right there, and I didn't play it for the stupid reason. But I must say, great game, and if you've put off playing Fallout 4 like I did, play it. It's in Game Pass. I can't not recommend it. It's just incredible. Now, Logan, are you back yet? Technical issues galore. We'll get it sorted. Funny thing is, originally this podcast was going to be on Thursdays back in the day when it started like 2 years ago. But on Thursdays, for some reason, my internet provider completely craps the bed. It's useless. So people in the UK, if you're with Sky Internet, you'll know what I'm talking about. For some reason, they turn off internet on Thursdays, or at least it feels like it. And you go back to, the early 2000s when you had dial-up. Remember when you couldn't use the phone at the same time as using the internet? Man, that makes me feel old, but it's how it worked back then. It was kind of cool at the same time. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll get the bad stuff out of the way because it's not really bad stuff. It's just stuff we already knew. So Tango Gameworks, Microsoft basically let everyone go, but thankfully a different studio picked them up. The studio behind Krafton, I should say the company behind Krafton, the developers behind, what do you call it? That Dead Space style game. The Callisto Protocol. Well, it turns out they picked them up. A lot of the developers have been able to go back and work on the games they want, which is great. However, it kind of came out today that they had this prototype for Hi-Fi Rush 2, 6 months in development, and, ideas for Evil Within 3. Now, personally, I'm past the whole thing. I don't think it benefits the developers. I don't think it benefits us as consumers. Just talking about this for months on end. I will say this though, Hi-Fi Rush 2 could possibly be a thing at some point, and that's what I'm happy about. Hi-Fi Rush was a weird game if you think about it. It's Devil May Cry kind of mixed with a rhythm game. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. It had unique characters. I think a lot of people really resonated with Hi-Fi Rush because of how different it was. We don't.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Logan. What have you been playing?
Sorry about that. For some reason, Discord is just being absolutely just incompetent right now. But I got it working now, so.
Yeah, before we get into the main topics, what have you been playing?
I've been playing, Space Marine 2, of course. I beat the campaign. Currently my game of the year. Been really, really loving it. Just it's everything you want in a game. And, shouts to Saber. They made a new patch recently that addressed one of the few issues I had with the entire game, which was hey, I'd like to have bots for operations mode, so I don't always have to squat up. Lo and behold, they announced a patch a day or two later, and they put it in the game, and it's just incredible. I'm wrapping up the operations mode with that. I have one or two left. I'm on the one where you have to get the warhead onto the train track thing to launch into the hive. So that's where I'm at right now. And I've been playing Darklight, which, like you, I was blessed and grateful to receive a code from the publisher. Super nice folks from Wales and Australia. And I've been really, really enjoying my time with that. It kind of started off a little rough because I was like, okay, this is not a hand holding game at all. It's Godspeed, figure it out.
Yeah.
So, so I jumped in and I'm like, all right, I'm a smart guy. I can figure this out. And I did, but it took me a little bit because some of the stuff wasn't entirely intuitive or upfront. So for feedback for the developer, because I'll be giving updated thoughts on this as we go as well. Because like you, I'm playing through it. But first thoughts I would offer as constructive feedback would be, maybe have some more pointers and waypoints and markers that are like clearly aligned to where you know exactly where you're going instead of like, okay, here's this general map thing that is not very cohesive
Yeah,
and a few icons and then just like, oh, here's a quest, but I'm not really gonna tell you where you need to go or this. Just like kill this guy, get rid of him, and you figure it out. And like not even a general direction or anything. And I was getting whooped by the boss, and then I realized, oh, these shards I had been collecting. Turns out I got to this bank thing, and I deposit them, and then I use those to upgrade my weapons and my gear and use these gems to install into my gear. And then I was able to beat him like super easily once I figured that out. Like a light bulb went off and I figured it out. And once I got the combat down, I'm really enjoying it. The kind of like I don't know how your build is, but I'm like got 4 out of 5 tiers of my sword right now, and that's what I've upgraded in strength. And so I'm just like chopping and dicing and just dancing around like a cyber ninja. And I love the Dark Souls mixed with Dead Space vibes.
yeah,
And I'm really, really enjoying the game. Like, I definitely recommend it to people. I would just, as feedback to the devs, what I had said earlier, and then a few accessibility options. And please increase the font size or have an ability to increase the font size on some of the prompts and things or change the colors because it's like neon red when everything else is already neon in the background. And so you're kind of like, I have good eyesight and I'm squinting, like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And, just minor little things. But overall, I'm really enjoying the game and I definitely recommend it. But just th- going into it for people, just, be aware that you need to upgrade, you need to explore, and be patient.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned the font thing. Shogun on Disney Plus in the UK. A lot of the backgrounds in that series are like this, like white or like just like a pale color. Well, in the UK, the subtitles are white.
Oh
So,
no.
yeah. So I would watch that when it started like wee hours of the morning, and I'm like watching this thinking, why on earth have they got white subtitles when they have these big wide panning shots of like the sky and stuff and like clouds, and it's like you've got white subtitles on a cloud, you know. But that stuff can be fixed. Darklight, like you said, it's a really good game. It's just some little things. I think the problem is that we get handheld a lot in video games now, whereas like 20 years ago, or like further back, games didn't really do that. You didn't really have arrows
Yeah.
pointing towards certain directions. The basically game design back then was like, hey, we're going to make this world and let you just figure it out yourself, right? And this
Mhm.
kind of feels like that, but like you said, like if they put some waypoints in, and if you press like select on the control and like look at the map, you can see where you are. But all they have to do is just put like little X's where you need to go. It's stuff they can fix, but hey, really cool game. Before we get back to the Tango thing, which we might just come around again later, I want to talk about Saber Interactive quickly because I am so happy for this studio that they've had this huge success with Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. That is still a mouthful. They've had this massive success to the point where, Games Workshop Warhammer stores, like they are like packed everywhere. Like it proves that one, you can have a successful AAA Warhammer game. It proves that you can get the normies and the regular people to play Warhammer games without knowing anything about the universe. So that works. And like bringing back Space Marine after what 12 years, something like that, 13 years. Um, like people thought the sequel would never happen, and it's here and it's performing well. Everyone loves it, and I think everyone basically has the same issue with it, and that is, apparently it's a relatively short campaign. Now I haven't finished it yet. I'm taking my sweet time with this. Because I'm wanting to savor it. Like I'm one of these people where I play a Gears of War campaign over 2 weeks. Right, that's just how I am. So I'm taking my time with it. But like they've had so much success with this game, they've basically confirmed a third game. It may get story content, which I I'm buying. I think a lot of people are excited for story content, and as a studio, they're changing things up because yeah, Saber Interactive, they've had hits in the past, but they've never had a game that's launched like this. World War Z ended up having 25 million players, but when it launched, it wasn't huge like this. Like in time, it got big, just over people playing it in Game Pass and just rediscovering these like zombie games. But with Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, it's blew up the studio. They have a bunch of games coming out over the next year and a half. By the way, they have
They're cranking it
yeah,
big time.
yeah. And if people aren't familiar with they making Jurassic Park Survival, which that's pretty much going to be good. They're coming out with A Quiet Place: A Road Ahead, which comes out this month. And next year they have another zombie game coming out, which is inspired by 80s action movies. It's a first-person shooter called Toxic Commando. Like, they have so many games coming out. I don't know how they can do it, but if they can keep up this pace with good games and like quality, like they're gonna end up being one of the best studios in the industry. And they put with the success of this, I can almost guarantee they're going to be able to get more money for future games. And, I just found out today that Space Marine 2 has been in development for 4 years. And considering how gorgeous that game is, that doesn't surprise me. When you're walking through the battlefields and you see these, like, ginormous, like, city-sized Mac gun cannons just in the distance. And, those are real modeled 3D objects. It's not just a painted background, which we get with some games still. Like, the whole world has this scale to it. And I think that's something that's just really impressive. And, people talk about frame rates and resolutions and, ray trace and all this stuff. But, like, I think one of the coolest next-gen things about Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is the amount of creatures on screen. The amount of Tyranids on screen, you can have thousands of enemies that are running towards you. And that's just super cool. It's basically a more advanced version of the World War Z stuff. Because World War Z is impressive. It really is. But it felt like it was just more of a backdrop. Things you can kind of interact with. You throw a grenade, there's some blood, that's it. But in this game, when these Tyranids, they crawl up the walls and attack you, you can fight them one-to-one. And I think that's what makes this game feel more, unique. But, like, Logan, you have to admit, like, Saber Interactive, like, they are clearly going to be one of the best studios over the next few years.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote from Phantom Menace, like, I'll be watching your career with great interest. They are doing fantastic work. And World War Z I really enjoyed. It was like a building block to something. Like you could see something like they had it there and you're like, wow, I love these mechanics. Like the horde is really impressive. I enjoy all the different classes of characters and customizations and weapons and gear and locations. And honestly, they made World War Z more interesting as a world itself than I thought even the movie did. Like, I think they did a really good job with it. And it made me more interested in that and going back to revisit the film. And I'd love to see what they could do with the sequel as well, if they even need to, because frankly, they have as much as we whinge about live service games, this is one of the few I actually do like and support and feel like they have found the right cadence to every so often we have a free update that comes with a bunch of new content or additions or tweaks to gameplay, and then we'll have a big expansion every once in a while. And then the game periodically goes on sale to where if you and your friends, like, if your friends have been playing for a while and then you want to jump in, you can get the game on sale regularly and then be able to get it with the DLC or expansions for cheap and then jump right in. It's a very intuitive designed way to handle this type of game. And I really applaud their work. And stepping into Space Marine 2, you can clearly see that they've taken what they learned with World War Z and have applied it to that on a much grander scale. Like, where, it's ironic because they're kind of swarm bugs to begin with, but in World War Z, it felt more like kind of just like a blob effect of enemies. Like they're all kind of tied together, kind of, they swarm you, true, and it feels overwhelming, but it feels like they're more just like tied together, kind of like, you throw a grenade, you take out a big bunch or something, and then they're gone. Where in this, it feels like they're more individualized and then they can swarm. And like that's one aspect, and then the sheer number of them on screen is crazy. And I love their attention to detail and how much they've gone all in on Warhammer. Like, it's funny, it's like they're so dedicated to it, like they realized there was a mistake with the canon representation of ankle armor, and they went back to make sure it was 100% right. For crying out, like most normal people wouldn't even notice that. And like they even changed the line. Like, I'll be careful how I phrase it, but
Yeah.
they changed the line at in the story that could change interpretations of things after an update versus before the update, because it seems like they're being given green light to continue and go with some stuff, so they made a slight tweak there. And like introducing bots just right after people requested it. And it's just, I love this game so much. I love the studio. I'm going to be day one for Quiet Place, which is Alien Isolation mixed with, you know, Quiet Place. And then Jurassic Park, which is basically, instead of the Xeno, you have a raptor, which sounds awesome. And it's set in the 90s. We all win. So, all in all, I love Saber. And the fact that they even have Knights of the Old Republic hidden somewhere in development as well. Like, they haven't said too much about it. It gives me hope. Like, the way they're doing things, if someone could fix it, maybe they can.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Aspire, like I've praised their remasters. They're good ones. You know, the ones they put effort into. But when I heard they were making a new game, and that game being Knights of the Old Republic, I kind of like just face palmed. So like when it all kind of crapped the bed, like we all kind of know what happened. Saber Interactive, I'm sure they'll make something good. And again, that's going to be a timed game, But anyway, Saber Interactive, they're going to be a studio to watch, and in the next year, they're coming out with 3 more games. Like, I don't know how they can do it, but anyway, it's impressive stuff. But we have to move on because this next topic, it's going to be a big one. Before we continue, for some reason, YouTube is an amazing website, but it doesn't always put out people's notifications, and I think Twitter's beginning to throttle posts that have YouTube links in them, especially if you post them regularly. So I posted a video yesterday, top 20 biggest new games coming to Xbox this October. Highly recommend it. The video's in the description down below. So many games coming out, but the fact I posted 2 links in 2 days, I think, kind of made Twitter crap itself. But if you're enjoying the show, please share it out. It does help the channel. If you want to support the channel with super chats or all that stuff, it's all appreciated. Anyway, Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft, they've been one of the biggest publishers on the planet for, what, 30 years now. It's kind of crazy, really. Well, YouTube's had a bit of a weird week, and how shall I put this? So Assassin's Creed Shadows was scheduled for November, and it's been pushed back to February. February is already a stacked month, by the way, like really stacked. And I've talked about before how I have a database of upcoming games to Xbox, my list, which is actually more accurate than IGN's apparently. Um, yeah, February's a packed month. It's going to be a good month for video games, but like for instance, you have Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Avowed releasing that month. Like it's a big month, and not everything has been announced yet. So like it being pushed to then, bit weird. And you know they want to polish the game and whatnot, and there's all the quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes by the way, controversy. And by the way, I'll get this out the way. I cannot wait for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've been an Assassin's Creed Shadows, sorry, an Assassin's Creed fan since 2007. I love the franchise. I have the books. I have the Encyclopedia, Volume 1 and 2. And like I have the collector's edition of every single Assassin's Creed game going up to Unity. Like Unity was the last one I bought. And I love the franchise. I love the fact that you have these really unique characters, and each game takes place not just in a different setting, not a different location, but a different time. And like I know Assassin's Creed gets a lot of hate, and some games have been better than others, but I love Assassin's Creed. And you know it being pushed back, it's disappointing. I normally I tend to get like an open world Ubisoft game for Christmas almost every year. That was pretty much going to be this year, but I love Assassin's Creed, love it. And you know I can't wait for this game. But by the way, my main interest in Assassin's Creed Shadows was playing as Naoe, the ninja character, because I play stealth, and I feel like as a stealth player, we don't really have many video games in stealth. You know, we don't get new Metal Gear Solids anymore. Splinter Cell, I'm going to rant about in a minute, but like stealth, it's very non-existent at the minute in the third-person space. So when they come out with a new Assassin's Creed, and one of those characters has basically enhanced stealth movement, which is something I've been wanting for Assassin's Creed for 15 years. I was excited to play it as her in this game, and you know it being pushed back, it's disappointing. But Ubisoft as a whole, they having issues. Star Wars Outlaws, it's underperforming. Apparently, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, which I've praised beyond belief. Like I'm still playing that game. You know they still have a premium expansion coming out. But like that game didn't do well. It didn't help that Ubisoft didn't advertise it. And you know, like I said, Star Wars Outlaws not performing that great. They having a lot of issues, and I think a big problem with Ubisoft is like they kind of roll themselves up in these. How shall I put them? They kind of get themselves into the situation where every single game they come out with, there's some sort of controversy, be it big or small. And this isn't like a new thing. This is something that's been going on for years. You know, if you go back to Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, people were complaining that you couldn't play in third person. By the way, I think Avatar would have sold significantly better if it was third person. And I'm saying that as someone that loves it in first person. It's just I think people would like to see their character in that world. But, like, and I can't wait to get to the expansions. But, like, Avatar would have sold better. Like, Logan, do you think Avatar would have sold better at third person?
Yeah, probably. Like, maybe some people aren't. I know Avatar, we assume most people know what it is and everything. But if you're just seeing the screenshots and the video of gameplay and stuff, you wouldn't know that you're a 9 foot tall blue cat alien thing. Like you see this world and everything, but it doesn't show you that. And most games I like either, but I think for this one in particular, third person probably would have helped. And Ubisoft's just been kind of on a weird roll lately anyway.
Yeah. And I think one of the big issues for them is like outside of these mini and large controversies they make themselves, They never listen to player feedback, and this has been going on for years. So back when Assassin's Creed Unity came out, and they did this with Syndicate as well, you would play a mission in that game, and it would give you a little, questionnaire afterwards on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. How much did you enjoy this quest? And it used to infuriate me at the time. It's like, you've made this game, you've went through the entire development process, Q&A and all this stuff, and you're asking me as a consumer while I'm playing, what did I think of each quest? And it took the immersion factor out of it for me, and I hated that they did that. Thankfully, they stopped doing that. And one, I'm not being paid for this, so they shouldn't be asking me this stuff. Like, if they want to send me an email survey after I've finished it, go ahead. I'll probably ignore it. But like, while I'm playing, that's insulting. That's actually insulting. Especially to someone that just bought your game and you're asking me, "Oh, it was this mission crap." Like, don't do that to me. But like Ubisoft, they kind of just do this thing. They get these mini or large controversies. They don't know what they're doing with certain intellectual properties. Watch Dogs Legion, I think, is one of the most technically impressive games this generation. However, it's the fact that people couldn't attach themselves to one character throughout the game. People didn't like playing it because, yeah, you could literally play as anyone in that game, and that was the problem. Like, the game didn't really have much personality, and the fact it was set in modern London, I loved that. But just the characters in that game were awful, despite the gameplay being good. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Yes, we're going back to 2019, or might be 2018. Either way, that game launched without the base features from Wildlands. It took 6 months for the ability to throw bullet cases as a distraction. And it took 6 months for us to get the ability to have AI partners in our squad, which was a feature we had since launch in Wildlands. So, like, that game was launch broken. Thankfully, now it's in a great state, right? I will happily recommend that game to people that want to play a stealth or action game. But they keep just doing these, like, they keep messing things up, Ghost Recon, now it's in a good place. But I'm annoyed as a consumer because I like Ubisoft. I buy a lot of their games. Clearly I like them. I have most of their games. The only game I don't play by them is Rainbow Six Siege. That's not for me. But like Splinter Cell. By the way, I could really just put my face through the window right now because I'm so annoyed. So Splinter Cell, we got the last Splinter Cell in 2013. It was the August 2013. In fact, it was a few months before the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 launched, so nobody really paid attention to it. It came out, reviewed okay. They didn't put out all the content for it because it was originally going to get map packs, but it didn't get enough support, so they basically cancelled it. And, we haven't had Splinter Cell since. And they've had this remake announced for like 3 years. We've seen nothing on this outside of, 4 pieces of concept art and a CGI trailer of goggles. Like, thanks, Ubisoft. But I found out the other day that Ubisoft's been working on a Splinter Cell Blacklist remaster. It was meant to get people all hyped up for the remake, which, by the way, I actually think is a good idea. But it turns out that's been delayed, so we don't know when it's going to come out. It was originally going to come out this year, and the Splinter Cell remake has been delayed internally with no date in sight. So you have Splinter Cell fans such as myself waiting years and getting nothing. Literally nothing. And it's annoying. It's really annoying because, again, on the stealth front, there's nothing out there. And also, it's a big problem for Ubisoft that all of their franchises are becoming the same thing. You have Assassin's Creed, open world city game set in different times, stealth elements, outposts, and then you have Ghost Recon now, open world game, outposts, Watch Dogs, open world game, outposts, Far Cry game, modern open world game, some with cities, outposts, and like all of their games have the same gameplay mechanics, kind of just designed slightly differently, and they never used to be like that. Ubisoft used to be one of the best publishers in the game, right? Go back to 2012 and 2013, they were coming out with Far Cry 3, which reinvigorated the whole franchise. They came out with Splinter Cell Blacklist. Granted, it had a different voice actor, but it has some of the best missions in the entire franchise. They had Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which is one of the biggest Assassin's Creed games to date. You're playing as a bloody pirate. We never had a game like that before. And, well, oh yeah, Ghost Recon Future Warfare, or whatever it was called. Great game. Great game. Like, literally, linear game. It still has some of the most fun third-person combat to date. So like, they were coming out with all these interesting games. Oh yeah, they also came out with the Avatar game back in 2010 or 2009. Like, that was a fun game. They came out with some smaller indie-style games, like Valiant Hearts. They had Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends. Like, they had so much variety as a publisher and a developer that everyone's needs were satisfied, you know? And now it's just all the same stuff. And you are going to see a lot of the videos on YouTube talking about why they think Ubisoft's failing and why they're going to just blame Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like, no, Ubisoft's problems are way deeper than that. It's just that they make a lot of games very similar, and I think people are getting tired of it. Anyway, before we continue, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $5. He says Ubisoft hasn't released a good game since Rayman Legends. Rayman Legends was so much fun. That game has these musical levels where basically the game's continuously side-scrolling, you have to jump over enemies and whatnot, and it's so much fun. Like, I used to replay those all the time. Rayman Legends was so original and added so much to the 2D platformer, genre that I love that game. I play it on a regular basis. And the reason I sound so annoyed is because I'm passionate about Ubisoft. As weird as that might sound, like, they have some of my favorite franchises: Rayman, Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon, Assassin's Creed, and I just want them to make great games because they clearly have potential to make great games. They really do. They have so much talent there, and as much as Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora is a great game, Ubisoft didn't market it at all, especially in the UK. I still haven't seen a single ad for it. They have so much talent, and it's just I don't know why they're making these decisions. And people keep talking about Ubisoft going bankrupt, and I do not want that to happen. I don't want Microsoft to buy Ubisoft. I don't want anyone to buy Ubisoft. I want Ubisoft to remain who they are, but then again, I want them to remain who they were 10 years ago. But yeah, thank you for the 5, Nick W. Rayman Legends is an amazing game. If people haven't played it, do so immediately. And in fact, I think that game was also a Games with Gold title back in 2014 or 15, so you might already own it and not realize it. Logan, I've been babbling on about Ubisoft for what feels like 2 hours now. What's your take on this? Because there's clearly some deep issues at Ubisoft, and it's going to affect everyone because they are literally one of the biggest publishers.
Yeah, this to me isn't like a simple one thing fix all kind of problem. Like, it's a multifaceted thing, and there's some deep rooted issues, it seems like, that Ubisoft has been dealing with for some time. Like, within the last I don't know, I might stretch the timeline a little bit, like 10 or so years, there has been, people coming and going, leaving in leadership, reboots, revamps, creative differences, scandals, just, teams getting shuffled around, potential hostile takeover, finally thwart off a hostile takeover, look at selling the company, now talk about going private. And it's just, there's all that just on top of the actual game design. And then when you get into the game design, it's like they had Assassin's Creed formula for a while that was really, really good and people enjoyed it. And they expanded it a bit with Black Flag, which felt like a perfect, I love that game. I would hum the sea shanties and everything. It was just so fun. I loved exploring and the naval combat and hunting the legendary monsters in the jungle or in the ocean, like Moby Dick or the ghost ships, and just it was so cool, and the story was great. And then after that, they went for broke and saw the success of The Witcher 3 and some of these RPGs, and are like, hey, let's do that, but we'll use Assassin's Creed. And I understand the idea, but for them to wholly shift to, okay, we're doing Assassin's Creed in this format and we're just going to make everything bloated and just ginormous to where it's exhausting to get through the game, to where it feels formulaic. That has become their number one problem. Is it feels like all these franchises they have are copy and paste formula UI clutter everywhere. It's just like, how we talked about hand holding earlier in game development
Yeah.
versus just letting you figure it out. Like they go the opposite. Like they've got you by the neck and dragging you somewhere to do something, and just like everything was okay. I gotta go to a village. I gotta clear out this village. I gotta take out the opposition. I gotta go climb this tower. I gotta go save this maiden from this thing and kill rats in a sewer, or just everything started getting the same. And then they go, oh, we've got this in Assassin's Creed, let's mix it with Far Cry, let's mix it with all this other stuff. Everything starts feeling the same, except kind of like Sony, where they have the sad dad apocalypse with clickers and stuff. They've got sad dad mythology with God of War. They've got all sad dad goes to space. Well, whatever you want to call it. When everything starts feeling the same and it's not within the same franchise to where it makes sense, it starts to turn people off. And then you get into the whole weeds of, well, what if they're pushing this, or they're rewriting that, or there's some hidden meaning or agenda thing or whatever. Whatever side you're on if they're doing that or not. The fact that that's even in the discussion and the mind share and in the news and being reported causes more issues. And when you wuss out last moment for Tokyo Game Show without really good announcements and just go, oh, well, we're taking the time to do this and that. And on top of that, you have horrendous price structures on some of these games, like Outlaws. I am a die-hard Star Wars guy, like through and through. Like I was the Star Wars guru growing up. Like if anybody had a Star Wars question, they came to me and asked me. I am like die-hard Star Wars guy. And even I was put off by how they were structuring the pricing on this, and the messaging about quests and what's in it, what's not in it, all this stuff. It got ridiculous. And so I think they need to step back and reevaluate, look in the mirror and change some things, because what they're going through is not a path that a lot of people want to go down.
Yeah. You mentioned the pricing thing. That's another big issue. Like they are clearly using their gold editions and deluxe editions to funnel people into getting into their subscription service. Like they have the most expensive game subscription service out of everyone. It's crazy. Granted, with theirs, you do get the expansions. That's pretty cool. But oh, and by the way, for people that don't know, if you pre-ordered Assassin's Creed Shadows, you will be refunded. However, if you pre-order it from now going on till release, you will get the first expansion for free. So I think that is actually a really good move. And as someone that's played many Assassin's Creed expansions, some of their expansions are actually pretty big. Like some of their expansions are the size of small games. So that is a great move. They are moving away from the season pass model. I honestly don't know how I feel about that. I feel like Ubisoft in the past, they've put a lot of value into their, gold editions or season passes, because I'll use Assassin's Creed Odyssey as an example. Like when Assassin's Creed Odyssey came out, like you could get the gold edition for, I think it was £90 in the UK, and that came with both expansions and Assassin's Creed 3 remastered. So like the value there alone was crazy. So I'm thinking maybe Ubisoft wants people to pay full price for each expansion rather than getting both for a discount. But I just want them to succeed. And one of the big reasons why I've been ranting about not Assassin's Creed, Splinter Cell. For people listening, like if you had an original Xbox, there's a significant chance that you played the first game. It's incredible what that game did, with sound design. You walk across broken glass and it makes a sound. I know it sounds like a novelty because all games do that now, but back then they weren't doing that. And it just changed up stealth games so much because you had to actually think how you're getting around the environment. And as someone that played that game to death, I honestly don't know why would it take 4 or 5 years to make that game as a remake. You have linear structured levels, and by the way, that first Splinter Cell game isn't even a long game. So what, are they making it open world now? Are they trying to bloat out each mission? I don't know, but that's one of my favorite franchises. I babble on about Mass Effect constantly. Splinter Cell's up there for me. I love Splinter Cell. I don't get them anymore because Ubisoft just doesn't make them. But yeah, Ubisoft, they have the potential to be the best publisher. I just want them to make good games, and I think that's all everyone wants. Like the problem is that you have these channels at the minute, they make rage bait, and it gets clicks, it makes money. I get that, but I love a lot of their franchises, and I just want them to be good. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Like all we needed was a sequel to Wildlands. Like think about it like this, everyone listening, right? Ubisoft had this colossal success with Wildlands, right? That they didn't just do the 1 year season pass. They did a year 2 season pass because they had over 25 million players. This was before subscription services. It wasn't in Game Pass. It wasn't in Ubisoft Plus. It was literally, it sold just really well every year until they basically, stopped supporting the game. And hell, that first game, has a predator mission in it where you and your squad have to hunt down a predator. That's
awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't remember that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's such a cool mission, and it's so out there because the predator music starts playing, and you equip with C4, landmines, everything, and normally you're taking down cartel people, but all of a sudden you go from that to being in the jungle and being hunted down by a predator. It's so cool. Most people don't even know about it. And all they had to do was just make Wildlands 2, just set it on a different island, slap a 2 on the end of the logo, boom, another 25 million copies. But they messed it up. And they were really trying to chase the Destiny model. They were wanting to have a looter shooter, whereas Wildlands, it was a very chill, and I still recommend Wildlands to people. It's a very chill stealth game, and it's hard to explain, but it's so good, and it's so much fun, and it's so simple. But in Breakpoint, they just wanted to do Destiny. They wanted to have that 10-year cycle where they can, sell people on microtransactions. Hell, that's where Ubisoft tried to get into NFTs, by the way. They sold people on NFTs, and it only works in that one game, and then they discontinued the NFTs after a year, meaning that people that bought them can't sell them. I thought that was funny, by the way, because I hate NFTs. But, and now, yes, Breakpoint is in a great point. It's in a great place. Yeah, I was bound to mess up at some point, but it's in a great place right now. In fact, when you play that game, you can actually go to the settings and change what kind of game you want to play as. Do you want to play it as a Destiny-style looter shooter? You can turn that on. Or do you want to play it as a Wildlands, type of game? Or do you want to go and play it as Rambo in a survival game, right? So they've literally split the game up and played 3 different ways. And I think that's really cool. But Ubisoft, like their share prices have dropped over 50% in the past year. They have so many issues with games in development. They have an Assassin's Creed game coming out in the future called Assassin's Creed Hex, or at least that's its code name. It's set about the whole like witch hunt timeline, and like I personally think that's a cool setting for Assassin's Creed. But apparently in that game you're going to be using magic, and I've been very vocal. I do not like the magic aspect of Assassin's Creed. Like I hate that magic stuff. Beyond Good and Evil 2, I just saw in chat. Like Beyond Good and Evil 2. Do you know how excited I was for that game? I was posting about that game almost every single night. Can't wait for this game. Gift this, gift there, screenshots, blah 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 blah. And now there's not even a release window in sight. We don't even know if it's ever going to come out. And it was an extremely ambitious game, and nothing at all. The list continues. What else? What other projects have they messed up? Oh yeah, not Assassin's Creed. Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands remake announced a few years ago. It was in a horrendous state where it didn't actually look any better than the original, and then they sent it off to a different studio to finish it, and then they sent it to a different studio to finish it, and then we heard nothing for 2 years, and then it got announced again last year, or I should say a few months ago, where it's basically going to be a remake built from the ground up by a different studio. Like, they are a complete mess. And if people are going online saying it's just Assassin's Creed Shadows and it's just Star Wars Outlaws, it's like, no, Ubisoft have this deep-seated issue that's been going on for almost a decade. They don't know what they're doing. Hell, they had...
Exactly.
Yeah, they had Watch Dogs, a GTA competitor. I'm doing air quotes with competitor. But they had one of the only GTA competitors out there, and they've thrown that franchise down the drain to the point where they have no active games in development at all, no Watch Dogs content, but you know what is coming? A Watch Dogs movie. Like, who's asking for a Watch Dogs movie? Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Assassin's Creed Valhalla sold through the roof when that came out. That was a game that everyone played in the house because we were all stuck inside with the lockdowns. We all had our shiny Xbox Series XSs and PlayStation 5s, and that was one of those games people played. And I like that game sold well because we're all stuck in the house. I had fun gameplay, gorgeous visuals, but the story, look, there's 2 Assassin's Creed games I've never finished, and that's Syndicate because I was bored out of my mind, and Valhalla because I was bored out of my mind. Like, they don't have memorable characters in their games anymore. The stories are bad. Like, just horribly written. And then you go look at, like, the Ezio collection where you're actually talking to historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci. In Assassin's Creed 3, you're talking to George Washington doing quests for him. Like, Assassin's Creed actually had this sort of structure where it actually was fun and interesting. The story was going somewhere. And Assassin's Creed now is a colostomy bag split open. I know that's a bit of a gross terminology, but like that's how I look at it, and I hate.
I mean, it's a jumbled mess. It makes no sense.
Yeah. It just upsets me, man. It upsets me because, again, so many people, and there's also people praying for their downfall, praying for them to be shut down as a studio, and I don't want that. I don't want that. Like, I want them to make good stuff, and yes, there is like 6 Assassin's Creed games in development. One of them being the remake of 4. And even then, I'm like, are they going to mess that up? And that's one of my favorite games of all time. I want something good. I think that, I think a lot of people here, one of their favorite games may be a Ubisoft game. Maybe it's Rayman Legends, like Nick W said. Maybe it's Splinter Cell. Double Agent or Chaos Theory. It's like wishing their downfall doesn't benefit anyone, and we've seen a lot today. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say on Ubisoft before we change topics?
Just that I would keep an eye on them. Like, aside from the Assassin's Creed Shadows drama, but also with that in mind, that see how Shadow sells, and if they rebound there is a path forward for them to get back in good graces with everybody. Like, do what they're doing with Outlaws now, where they have a big message out and they've showed future content coming. They've apologized. They've said clearly we didn't get it right up front. We're fixing it. They have a clear plan and they're putting in patches and listening to feedback about the stealth mechanics and other stuff that people wanted. They're trying to make it feel more alive. They're trying to fix the visuals. Like, it seems like they have a good plan for that one. So I feel good about where Outlaws will be. Not where it was when it launched, but where it will be at the end of its cycle. Assassin's Creed Shadows, I'm iffy on because I'm curious how much they're going to quote unquote re-envision when they release it after a few months in the shadows. And if it doesn't go well, then I think there's a very good possibility they get bought by, a Tencent or something like that. And frankly, no one should want that. That would be very bad. So root for them to get their stuff together and to get going because gaming is better when Ubisoft is good. And Ubisoft needs to get good really quick.
Yeah. Personally, I can't wait to get to Outlaws. I've got way too many games going on at the minute to like start yet another open world game. But like seeing that message the other day, maybe I did the right thing waiting for the stealth stuff to be fixed. And I love stealth games, but do you know what stealth players love? Stealth that works. I've played too many games in the
Not
past.
instant death.
Yeah, I've had too many games. Like the whole insta death thing in any game for stealth, it's annoying. It should be more dynamic. And I also saw in chat before the Skull and Bones. I never even touched on that. Skull and Bones apparently cost over $800 million.
Oh my gosh!
like let's put this into perspective. That is the price of 6 Dune movies. That the whole Avatar franchise is probably going to come to the budget of less than that. We're not going to include marketing, but like 800 million on that game.
200 million per A.
Yeah.
Quadruple
God.
A.
Like advertising that as a quadruple A game, and by the way, that game had the weirdest phase for development. It was originally an expansion for Assassin's Creed Black Flag, a multiplayer expansion. Then it became its own thing. Then it was going to be a Destiny style game with ships, and they had the success right there, right? They had one of the most successful games of the year. It was the biggest launch game for Xbox One and PlayStation 4, right? All they had to do was make a bloody sequel. That's all they had to do. Yeah, 2 Concords. Right? Yeah, Skull and Bones is 2 Concords. Is that how they're going to start teaching math at school? This is 2 Concords. This is 3. But like Skull and Bones, like all they had to bloody do was make Assassin's Creed Black Flag 2. That's it, right? No, it doesn't even have to be Edward Kenway. Although I would have loved him to come back for another game. But like, just have another pirate game where you can play a single player and have an interesting story. We don't need forced multiplayer. We don't need there's a mechanic in Skull and Bones, and I was embarrassed to play this in the beta, by the way. So there's a mechanic. Bear in mind, you can't get off your ship outside of towns, and when you go to towns, you can only go to ports and buy stuff. There's a mechanic in Skull and Bones where you're going around in your pirate ship, and you maybe see some coconut trees near the shoreline. You pull your boat up near these coconut trees, right, and you get a little saw mini game where there's this bar going from side to side, and you have to tap A whenever it gets to a grain section, and then you chop down the coconuts and you can sell them. You don't get out of your ship. You're not physically, cutting down coconut trees. I was literally secondhand embarrassed for the studio when that mechanic popped up. And you go from Assassin's Creed 4 to that mess. I don't know, like, what were they thinking? And, like, I, I was asked recently, like, would I buy Skull and Bones if it was £10? Honestly, I think that's too much. I think at £5, I might think about it. Hell, there's a. By the way, the Xbox store, it's the same in the US and pretty much everywhere in the world. That the top paid section isn't just by sales numbers; it's dollar value. So when The Crew 2 went down to 89p in the UK, it shot up to number one on the store. So many people were impulse buying this 89p game. It became the number one thing on the store. I think it's pretty high up in the US as well. And it's like, maybe they could do that. Maybe you can sell this, and I'm not even joking. Maybe they can sell it for less than $1 or less than £1, and just see if people impulse buy it. Because at 89p, I'd buy that game, and I'd do the little cringe, sawing down coconut trees mini game. But man, Ubisoft, they need to get the act together quick, because I don't want them to go away. Anyway, we've been talking about Ubisoft for what feels like 8 hours. We'll move on. We will talk about Shattered Space next week because I forgot to unpause my download because I'm an idiot. And, that's my problem. Like, Logan, did you get to Shattered Space yet?
I have not, but I plan to this month. This is, as everyone knows, spooky season, so I'm going to be primarily focused on horror games and movies and stuff. But since Shattered Space is spookier, I'll probably get to it.
Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty of different horror games to play and stuff. But we'll talk about Starfield next week because again, I didn't unpause the download. You know what? We'll talk about Tokyo Game Show. Now, there was a lot of hype going into Tokyo Game Show, and I think a lot of people had like good reason to be hyped because Phil Spencer, Aaron Greenberg were talking about how everyone needs to pay attention to this show, and I'll say, right, I think they did a great job. I thought it was a great show. I think that oh no, I saw in chat. We'll be talking about the Mighty Keith thing in a little bit because we're in the GRPG section. So TGS, I thought they did a good show, and honestly, I think a lot of people's disappointment came from that there was no Final Fantasy 16 there, which we'll be going to be talking about in a minute. But honestly, I thought it was a good show, and plus, we got a bunch of games that came to Xbox, which I'm very happy about, by the way. So, Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters 1 through 6, now on Xbox. And by the way, I've never been able to play the older Final Fantasy games because I was a Sega kid. Do you know what the Sega Mega Drive didn't have many of? JRPGs. I don't know why that was a thing back then. I was too young to know about this, but yeah, didn't really get the chance to. But anyway, we got the Pixel Remasters. We got Trials of Mana and Legend of Mana, also available in Game Pass. And I've also been playing Trials of Mana, by the way. Really enjoying that game. Super cool, fun combat, very straight to the point, easy. But like these games are in Game Pass. The new Atelier game is coming to Xbox. There's a bunch of different JRPGs coming to the Xbox. In fact, there's over 1,400 games in development from across Asia that's coming to Xbox and PC in the Xbox ecosystem. So, honestly, I thought it was a damn good show, outside of no 16 be there. Like, Logan, what was your overall thought of the show?
I thought it was a great show. I was very impressed. Pretty much everything they showed was something I'd be interested in for the most part. And yeah, I know Final Fantasy 16 wasn't there, but it, it's a matter of when, not if, at this point. Especially if you listen to the head of Final Fantasy, Yoshi P, at Square Enix. all but saying like, look, it we just don't have a time right now, but we want it there. There's a desire to get it there. Microsoft is obviously motivated to get it there. It, Final Fantasy 16 will get there. It's just not ready at this moment, which honestly is okay because for the PC folks, it sounds like they need to fix some issues for them right now. So get that port sorted and then get the Xbox One out when you've got that fixed. And I bought the Pixel collection immediately. As soon as I saw it was available, I put my money where my mouth is and I bought it. I said I would day one that if they ever get it to Xbox. Because you and I have been doing this podcast, it feels like years now. And we have had so many segments devoted to the Pixel Remaster collection and how they ran it on a Fire tablet, but somehow not an Xbox. So, yeah, it came to Xbox finally. And rejoice. I'm so glad. And if you look at the store right now, it's actually doing quite well on Xbox stores, both in Europe and in the US. Like it's trailing like the usual suspects of Call of Duty and GTA and some sports titles. But outside of those, it's one of like the very top selling in the US. So clearly people had interest in that collection. Whether, some basement folks on Twitter would have you believe otherwise, it clearly there was a desire for more Final Fantasy on the platform, and Xbox users buy games. Who knew? But I'm really thrilled with that. The Altair game looks awesome. Like, she has health potion high heels and this flintlock magic rifle thing. And the creator loves Halo and said the game mechanics and world were inspired from playing Combat Evolved. Like, count me in. This sounds awesome. Like, hold on a sec. Let me pop a potion out of my heel and then blast this minion with this flintlock rifle and use this magic. And it's all this JRPG goodness. And then all these other games, like, I think the little Tanuki mail delivery game looks super fun and cute as well. Like, it's really funny coming from a guy like me, I guess, but because I love games of all genres. Like, I'll go from playing a brutally disgusting, just nasty horror game that's like, oh my gosh. And then I'll go play Tetris or something afterwards. But this looks like a nice change of pace. And they had great announcements. Like, if you're that upset that 16 wasn't 100% there, then I don't know what to tell you. It we got the other ones and it's coming. It's just not ready yet.
Yeah, I think these games are coming, and like they still need to fully patch the PC version of 16, and people have been waiting for the PC version. So like, I'd rather them optimize that first. And look, it's a busy holiday. It really is. The next few months are packed. Early next year is packed. If I was Square Enix, I would announce it at the Game Awards, release of January.
Sounds good.
And am I saying January because I know, or because I'm impatient? Because I'm impatient. I want that game now. And January's not that far away. And plus, I'm going to be drunk over Christmas, so everyone wins. But yeah,
Keeley does love Final Fantasy announcements.
yeah. I mean, who knows? I will say this though: if Final Fantasy 16 is announced for Xbox at the Game Awards, will Jeff Keighley mumble it out of the side of his mouth like he did with Genshin Impact?
It depends on if he's out of his Pal World cell by then.
Yeah. My God, that was just amazing. The meme material is always good. But yeah, Tokyo Game Show 2024, I thought was really good. And like you said, that Tanuki game where you play as like a paper delivery Tanuki thing, that looks fun. I'm gonna get that. But yeah, the Pixel remasters, by the way, like I said, I never got the chance to play them because, again, Sega. I fired up 6 today for the first time. Bear in mind, I've always wanted to play 6. Always. My only other option to play it is on PC. I don't game on PC. And I have the Super Nintendo Mini, right? And when I got that, I was thinking, right, I'm going to play the Final Fantasy VI game. It turns out I really hate playing JRPGs with a D-pad. So I didn't get back to it. But I actually got to play it today. I forgot to mention before. Only played the opening section because I just wanted to get a feel for it. And my God, that art aesthetic, it's still good, right? And I discovered a little feature in the Pixel remasters, which I'm going to use a lot. And I think if people don't know about it, you're going to like it. If you go into the options while the game's paused, you can change the values of XP and gil gain. Yep. It has an easy mode. Like, I'm not going to lie, I've said it before, I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to horror games, but when it comes to JRPGs, if you can let me put that on easy, that bad boy's going on easy, right? One, I don't...
Oh man, it's time to speed run that collection now. That's awesome.
Yeah, like, you can change the XP and gil gain up to 4 times. So, like, hell, I'm just going to breeze through this game, because, look, I don't know what it is. The second I have a difficulty spike in a game now, I want to run out the house screaming. Like, I just can't do it anymore. Like, I think, do you know what I think it is? I think Lost Odyssey, I think that game ruined me. The blue worm boss.
PTSD.
Yeah, like the second I see that a blue worm in a game, I run for my life because, oh my God, bit of a tangent. The second boss in the first main boss in Lost Odyssey is one of the hardest bosses in the entire game. Like, and I love Lost Odyssey. I could talk about Lost Odyssey all day. Amazing soundtrack, love the characters. The short stories can bring a tear to a full-grown man's eye. Like, it's a masterpiece, right? But what on earth were they thinking? And then you fight the bird boss. Like, why? But anyway, if people haven't played it, play Lost Odyssey. It's amazing. And by the way, Final Fantasy X had a similar thing where you fight this. You're on this ship going to another island, and the boss battle is basically the antagonist in I was going to say Assassin's Creed, and Final Fantasy X is Sin. It's basically a big giant floating fish, right? And one fin sticks out of the water, and you are underleveled. You have to fight this boss, and you finally defeat this fin on the side of the ship. And you wipe the sweat off your forehead, and then another fin goes up on the other side of the ship, meaning you have to do the same boss fight twice in a row without a save point. Oh my God! Right, I was horrified at the time, to the point where I was actually tempted to take out the disc out of the PlayStation 2 and snap it in half. Right, horrifying. Anyway, we were talking about the Pixel remasters. Yeah, you can change the XP and gil gain, which I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna make that game so easy. It's gonna be amazing. But yeah, it's great to have the Pixel remasters finally on Xbox. I know in America, I don't know if it was just North America, where Final Fantasy 3 is actually Final Fantasy 6. Depending on where you lived, they had different names. But hey, they're on Xbox now. But like, speaking of Final Fantasy, it's basically been confirmed that Final Fantasy 16 is coming to Xbox. Like we've said, it's not an if, it's a when. The creative director of Final Fantasy 16 was talking about it, and he just said when it comes to Xbox, not if, when. Again, the PC version needs to be sorted. So like, I think people just have to wait. We won't have to wait that long. But it's good that they're actually trying these games out. I should say they're actually optimizing these games for the console, because look, we've all had bad games with ports and stuff. Cyberpunk, amazing game now. When it launched, not really. Ubisoft, they've had their issues with Assassin's Creed in the past, with Unity, but like, I would rather a game just be delayed and not be announced for Xbox for as long as possible, just so it can bloody work. I can't be arsed with all these articles that come out and talk about these, broken games and they're glitchy and whatnot. And yes, you can get meme material out of them, but it's tiresome. You don't want to wait for a game and then have it buggy. You know, I want the bloody game to come to Xbox and it work. Anyway, we'll continue. Oh god, we've still got a bunch of stuff left. Oh right, we're going to talk about Metaphor ReFantasy real quick. Is that a weird name? Yes, but it's a good game. Logan, did you get the chance to play the demo at all?
I have not, but it looks like an absolute acid trip from Atlas, and I can't wait to play it.
Yeah. So I briefly played the demo. I didn't want to play it for the whole thing because I'm kind of getting burnt out on experiencing the same part over and over again, even though you can import your progress. The only problem is, the reason I don't do this anymore is because in the past, I'm looking at you, Dragon Quest 11. It doesn't unlock the achievements that you would have unlocked to that point in the game. So that's why I don't do it. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing now. Maybe it's a thing they fixed. But with Dragon Quest 11, that definitely was not a thing. So yeah, I briefly played the demo. Gorgeous visuals. You've got this like modern anime style cutscenes. By the way, the cutscenes are literally anime. It's literally anime. It's beautiful, right? Hands drawn, beautiful anime. The gameplay is really good. You can tell they've took their lessons from, Soul Hackers 2 and the Persona games. Like, it's really good combat. It's very stylized. You have this sort of like, I don't want to call it an airship, but I want to say it's a sand ship, right? Sand ship. But it's a really cool game. You have this like weird skateboard, so you can like get around places faster. But like from what I played, it's a really cool game. I think a lot of people are gonna like it if you like JRPGs. But anyway, why are we talking about a demo? Certain people have came out and said, and I've seen a bunch of people complain about Metaphor ReFantasy not getting enough marketing. The fact that Xbox has the marketing rights, it's going to ruin the game. And I have to say, why are these people talking out their arseholes? Right? Wasn't Metaphor ReFantasy on the PlayStation State of Play? Right? It's not that PlayStation can't talk about it, right? It's been on their Twitters and all that stuff. It's been on their Facebook, right? They can talk about the game. And if anything, it's up to Sega and Atlas to talk about the game. And by the way, if people think this game is genuinely an Xbox exclusive, isn't that kind of Microsoft overdoing the marketing? So it's like, is the game being marketed or not? But it's people have to take any opportunity to make something Microsoft's fault. I don't know what people are talking about on YouTube specifically. I'm getting ads for Metaphor all the time. Like, Logan, what's your take on this? Because the stuff I've seen today is kind of over the top.
I mean, I've seen advertisement for this game everywhere. Like, if anything, I've been almost oversaturated with advertisement for this particular game. Like, I am very well aware that it is coming soon. And it looks awesome. And I can't wait to dive in. Has a super cool collector's edition as well. Physical, for those who want physical copies and stuff. And yeah, it's more Atlas goodness. You know, hopefully at some point that they can bring over 13 Sentinels and a few other games that aren't on Xbox yet. But I am definitely excited for this one being on Xbox. And if for some reason people don't know it's coming to PlayStation and stuff, that's actually funny because I would always just assume when in doubt if it's a JRPG, it's coming to PlayStation unless it's Xbox first party.
Yeah, it is a weird one. Like, I don't. There's something that set off these. We're going to call them the JRPG gatekeepers. There's something that set them off last year. You know, ever since Microsoft got the marketing deal for the Persona, Persona, was it the 3 Royale? No, I'm going to butcher all these names because they're all over the place. 3 Reload, right? Ever since Microsoft got the advertising rights for Persona 3 Reload after getting, 3 Pocket Edition, portable, 4 gold and 5 royale on Xbox. Good times. You know, it was a big deal. They got this, and then we saw the Xbox logo scare last year.
That is still an all-time just facepalm article.
Yeah, I loved that, by the way. The Xbox logo scare, and like you could tell this person genuinely wrote that thinking, yeah, this is what I'm going to go with. And like, like, where's the PlayStation logo scare for all these games we don't get? I don't see that. Like, that absolute clown behavior, but like for some reason that set people off into being like super paranoid about these games. Like, yes, they marketed with Xbox, and by the way, all these people, they freak out. There's multiple reset error threads talking about, hey, why is there no PlayStation logo at the end of the trailer? It's like, that's an industry standard, right? When was it Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered was announced on the PlayStation showcase? There was no Xbox logo at the end because it was on their showcase. I had to, by the way, the amount of people I had to correct online. Wow. But like, that's an industry thing, right? But I don't know. And like, there's all these people. By the way, I'm not going to name names because I can't be bothered. But like, IGN put out an article today talking about how the creative director of Final Fantasy 16 wants to put the game on Xbox but doesn't know when. Scroll down on Twitter, and read the replies. There's some pretty, like, multiple hundreds of subscribers, 100,000 subscribers, content creators, literally posting that anti-JRPG Xbox rhetoric of Xbox guys don't buy games. Look at them. I'm not going to name them, but they're there. Multiple people. And like, there's just all the replies of people being like really vile and like what's it going to take for people to get past the whole Xbox guys don't buy games thing? I've seen so much hype for JRPGs on Xbox. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, we're getting new games now, but we constantly told we don't buy them. So why is the new games coming? Why are we still getting Atlas games? Why are we still getting Yakuza games? By the way, another Yakuza game was announced for Xbox since last week. It's was it Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii? Weird name, but it's going to be a damn good game. I personally can't wait for that. As long as they get decent, English voice actors, because people have had issues with certain people in the past. Not gonna name names, but talent. That's what we want. But like, I don't really get like, where did this whole anti-Xbox JRPG thing like stem from? People just seem really threatened. And it's tiring. I'm tired of talking about this all the time because I have to argue with dumbasses online. The people that just like they seem frightened. They seem like small PP energy. I don't know what it is. It's really
gatekeeper energy.
Yeah, gatekeeper energy. It's like they get terrified, right? When Persona came to Xbox, I didn't see fans crying online, like talking about how they're taking our exclusives away. I didn't see that. I never saw you. I was never once attacked by any Yakuza fan online just by being excited, right? Never happened. Something with Final Fantasy in this metaphor game, it scares people, crapless. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't get why it started. And, Square Enix has said in the past, hey, when it comes to Final Fantasy, and, obviously that'll include Dragon Quest. By the way, Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, that is also coming to Xbox. There's also going to be a Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D, which I assume is going to come to Xbox as well. But, like, you have these people online that are constantly pushing the whole Xbox guys don't buy JRPGs thing, but yet they keep on coming, right? These games keep on coming, so, like, when will this end? It's like, there's, like, the best Xbox TGS ever, in my opinion. A ton of cool stuff have came, bunch of cool stuff's coming. Like, what's going to happen? When's that point going to come where these people just shut their faces, shut their mouth hole with this rhetoric, right? It's tiring. Logan, have you got anything else to say on this topic before we change? Because, like, my God, this is so dumb. It really annoys me.
I mean, you've eloquently covered it about, as politely as you can. It's ridiculous, and I I just honestly think they probably won't change because even you educate them, you give them information, you show them things. You think over time you just learn, but some people either just are not capable of learning or refuse to learn. And it seems to be that way. So the majority of people have been really awesome and positive about it, and I love it. And the franchises themselves, the fans, like you said, I've seen so many Persona people happy that more people are playing Persona and that the franchise is bigger than ever before. Even the directors and Atlas and stuff have been like, wow, people really dig this franchise on Xbox. This is great news. We should bring more things to Xbox. So to me, it should be just an absolute win. But, that's rational thinking. So I don't know. We'll see, but I can't believe we even forgot to mention it. But StarCraft announcement at TGS was massive as well. Huge part of the show.
Yeah, I'll put this in my writing quick. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me because it was announced there. Because StarCraft is, huge there. So StarCraft Remastered and StarCraft 2 Campaign Collection. Again, that's a mouthful. Uh, coming to Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass, and Game Pass Ultimate. Now, I'll put this out there. Me and Logan had the exact same thought. Why the hell is this not on console? Like, or why is it not coming to console? Like, we have RTS games on console. These games can work. We have Age of Empires, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, Age of Empires 4, Age of Mythology Retold. Like, these games work. Halo Wars 1 and 2. So StarCraft kind of makes sense to come to console. Logan, I know you wanted to talk about this briefly because, like, again, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, StarCraft to me being featured was a huge, huge win for the franchise, the fan base, and just like people gaming in general because StarCraft is a historic franchise that directly was a major proponent for the introduction of MLG, Major League Gaming, and esports. And it's basically like a national sport in Korea. It's huge in Asia in particular, and just showing it off at TGS and going full blown like this is associated with Xbox is big time. You have we'll get into it more later, but buzz about other things involving StarCraft being in the works as well. So it seemed like a perfect opportunity. It coming to Game Pass for PC is a no-brainer. It's awesome news. Very excited for those people. But, with a caveat, I am firmly of the belief that going forward, Xbox should put their money where their mouth is and, be walk the walk and talk the talk about you want your games everywhere, you're wanting everybody to experience them, do this, and that, which is all fine and dandy. But if you're bringing an iconic franchise back and you're putting it just on PC and skipping arbitrarily your console user base, that is a slap in the face to the console users. Just being blunt, because it reeks of like that early Gears Tactics being on PC arbitrarily and then eventually came to Xbox. Or Age of Empires 2, and then it eventually came to Xbox. But then 4, they had their act together, they knew what they were doing. It launched on console, everybody loves it. Age of Mythology Retold has launched on console. It's been doing quite well. People love it. They're apparently pleased at Microsoft with how well it's doing. So yeah, it seems a no-brainer to put it on console. And don't even get me started on the idea of it not being able to work on an Xbox because lo and behold, people were able to play StarCraft on the N64 with that three-legged monstrosity of a controller. If you can tell me with a straight face that you can make an enjoyable experience with that controller, but you can't with an Xbox controller, which is considered a very, very universally beloved design that RTS studios are using and other people are using, then I don't know what to tell you. That is just bull. Straight up bull. And I will not hear otherwise. Like, Blizzard, a challenge. Get this thing on Xbox. It's an iconic first person franchise. You want to grow the franchise? Don't piss off your console user base. They support you day one. They're there for it. And if for people who say, but RTS is niche, I'm like, you want to know how you make something not niche? You make it more widely available. Horror for a long time was very niche. And then people discovered, hey, you know what? This Resident Evil kind of slaps. And then Silent Hill and all this other stuff. And it blew up. And now it's a widely accepted, loved genre. You want more RTS support? You want more eyeballs on the franchise? You want more support for the franchise? You want to build even more hype for potential spin offs of the franchise? Put these suckers on the Xbox platform, period.
Yeah, nail on the head there. I mean, what else can I say? I think that as someone that's played like a bunch of RTS games, and for people that are just like don't know, like back in the early 2000s when I was a kid, I used to play a lot of RTS games on PC, and that was it. By the way, that was a prime time for RTS games because you had a
Golden Age.
yeah, it was a golden age, and especially for sci-fi RTS games, which was my forte. Star Trek Armada 1 and 2, Star Wars Empire at War, Homeworld 1 and 2. Like, those games were amazing, and I can tell you that the only RTS game that I don't think could work on a controller is Homeworld. I don't know how you get that to work on a controller unless you add a third stick, right? Because you're moving like individual starships in three-dimensional space, but like with StarCraft, that's not really a problem. You're moving units on a flat map. So can they get it done? Yes. Should they? Yes. Will they? Hopefully. And speaking of StarCraft, and this will interest the non-RTS folk. It looks like I was going to say Bethesda, Blizzard, and Microsoft. They want to expand, and this goes with a lot of stuff that was said early on in the FTC stuff. Microsoft really wants to expand on the StarCraft universe, and we could potentially be getting a third-person shooter, which is in development right now. Now, especially off the back of Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, and people have been praising this game as an Xbox 360 game because it is. It's an Xbox 360 game souped up on steroids, and it's amazing. And it looks like maybe they want to do the same thing with StarCraft. And look, I've been saying for like 3 years now, 2 years or whatever, like, I want a third-person StarCraft shooter, right? It seems like an easy thing. You've got Space Marines, not the Warhammer kind, but you've got Space Marines with big guns fighting aliens. That's all you need to do. That's a winning formula. And they've tried in the past. By the way, every single post I make about a StarCraft third-person game, I get about 90 replies saying StarCraft Ghost. Like, I'm talking about a game that would exist in release, right? I'm not talking about a game that was originally on the original Xbox and it was cancelled and then it's sitting on some hard drive somewhere because apparently that game was almost completed. But it looks like we are going to get a
I
Star.
mean, I'd take that.
Yeah, I would still take that game if they released it, but it looks like we are going to get a StarCraft shooter, and in an age where we don't really get many third-person shooters now, not really. I would love that game. And, ever since Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, they've talked about this a lot. Just I think some people just don't realize. We were told that, hey, could StarCraft come back as a different genre? They said yes. they said that because Microsoft purchasing, Activision Blizzard, Blizzard could make single player games now. And then we get this news or rumor of a shooter in development. It all kind of adds up if you think about it. Logan, what's your take? Because I know we've talked about this a lot, and it kind of seems like an easy sort of decision to make, like a shooter, a sci-fi shooter.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, you've got the Coalition who are fantastic with Gears of War, which has some elements and inspirations from the Warhammer 40K universe. And then you have StarCraft, which obviously was inspired by the 40K universe. So was Warcraft, which was inspired by, Warhammer, and that's how they ended up making their own stuff because they didn't get the licensing. And so that's a whole alternate timeline if they had gotten the licensing for Warhammer and 40K to begin with. But yeah, just it seems a no-brainer. Everybody wants it. Hopefully third time's the charm. Like heck, I would even take as a bonus just release whatever they had of Ghost. Like original Xbox quality and all, just like whatever they had. It's some filler appetizer would be great. I've always wanted to play that game, and just it. There's so much they could do with it. The lore, the universe, the characters. Like you have stealth characters, which is kind of what they were doing with Ghost. You've got the big hulking Marines. You've got the Zerg. You've got it. It's just so open for being an epic, completely boss shooter game, over the top 360 style extravaganza. It's just they they just really need to nail it, and I feel good that they will. I think that they're dedicated and have their heads on right now that Kodak isn't breathing over their shoulders anymore. So I think they'll get it done this time.
Yeah, I think that I I think the whole say if you say Space Marine now, people just assume you're talking 40K. But like the whole
Hmm.
Space Marine like subgenre of sci-fi, we don't really get that much now. Like back in the early days, God, that makes me sound old. But back in like the 360 generation, you had Master Chief, you had Commander Shepard, you had who else? Marcus
Doom
Phoenix,
guy, technically.
yeah, Doom Guy.
Um,
And like that was a really cool time. And by the way, as a sci-fi fan, I was living that up. Right, but like, there's nothing cooler than a space marine, sci-fi dude in armor. Nothing cooler. Um, and like that's all they need to do to basically sell me on a game at this point. Space armor, big gun, tick. Um, but like that franchise is kind of built for that. And honestly, like as much as I think people would love a StarCraft 3, like especially for the fans, like I think that's a sci-fi universe that's basically screaming to be opened up. They could do anything with that universe. I'm basically praying for any developer to make more sci-fi games because I'm sick to death of yet another fantasy game with swords and dragons. Like sci-fi, come on. And they have the IP
you
right.
don't want to go to the woods again and kill rats?
Oh god, like I swear to God, like if I have to walk through like a new fantasy forest one more time, and I like fantasy, but like that scene in Spaceballs when they comb in the desert, that's what I'm like.
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah, like that. I'm trying
yeah.
not to swear, but like that's what I'm like right now. I'm wanting more sci-fi games, and I ain't found anything. There's next to nothing. Everything I like gets cancelled or goes into development hell for like years and years. I'm praying that the StarCraft thing happens because I can't do another Sword and Shield game for another billionth time. Like, give me some sci-fi guns, third person sci-fi guns, anything at this point. Um, but yeah, StarCraft. It looks like they're actually going to do something with the franchise. It looks like there's active things going on. So you've got the remaster and the collection of 3 games also coming to PC Game Pass. Really cool time for StarCraft, and it looks like under Bobby Kotick, it looks like StarCraft was never going to return. Now it really looks like it's going to happen. So hey, good for everyone. you know, the last topic we'll talk about, which is the never-ending story of the Xbox handheld. And I think when it comes to the Xbox handheld, we've heard this rumor for a long time. Microsoft wants to develop something like that, and we didn't know if it was going to be a current gen thing or next gen thing. Jez Corden from Windows Centrals came out, said their next plan, next generation, is the Xbox Series X successor and or a handheld, right? In lieu of a small console. I honestly think that will work because the Steam Deck is huge. The ROG Ally, the Legion Go. There's like a billion at this point of these PC handhelds, but it just proves that people can make handhelds and be popular that are outside Nintendo. And after watching the Tokyo Game Show, after what Sarah Bond said on that stage, I'm 99.9% sure the handheld's happening. Because they keep referring to Xbox and then talking about handhelds and then future hardware all in the same sentence. Like, that isn't by accident. Hell, this is Microsoft, right? They put things on Phil Spencer's shelf just to see if we notice it, right? I've complained about Microsoft messaging in the past, and they put things on a shelf for us to find. Do you know how crazy that sounds? A $1 trillion organization puts things on a shelf to see if we notice it. Like, that shouldn't be a thing, but it is. And it like, a lot of people like it. It's also a meme, but like, the handheld's basically happening. It so is. When it comes to the Series S, you have this really powerful console in such a small box, but because 3 developers have a problem developing for it, it's clearly a bad idea. Even though other developers can get more intensive games working on the thing. You have games running at 120 frames per second, like Call of Duty, running on the thing. But no, we'll forget about that. We'll just complain about the S constantly because, we're boring. That's what people sound like. I think them coming out with a successor to their main console and a handheld could work. I see a lot of people have been asking for an Xbox handheld for a very long time. If you go back 10 years ago, I don't think that would work. The PC handhelds didn't really kick it off. Would they do cartridges, or was it going to be digital only? I think with the Steam Deck, it proved that a digital only console handheld works. So, like, I think it's all but confirmed now. During the FTC documents, it came out that their next generation starts in 2026. Maybe plans have changed, but if they can come out with a 2-year head start, potentially ahead of the competition with a shiny new console and a handheld, that's a winning formula, especially when they're going to be putting out hardware in a market that tend to lean towards handhelds. Japan, or across Asia, cloud compute is taking up popularity over there. So, like, from the outside looking in, it really looks like the handheld thing is happening, and I can imagine that being a really nice piece of hardware because people like to crap on Microsoft given any opportunity, but you have to admit their hardware is built really well. The Series X, like, you could knock someone out with it. The One X, like, that is the size of a big encyclopedia, but weighs what, the same weight as a 1990s CRT television. Like, you could knock someone out with that thing. That thing could be a murder weapon on Clue, right? So, like, they're going to come out with great hardware. Like, Logan, I think we all pretty much got the same thing, right? The handheld's happening.
Yeah, like I said last time with FF16 prediction, I don't deal in absolutes. I'm not a Sith, but I would say it's very very likely. Um, like Jez from Windows Central has reported, like at one point they had Surface Minis like all in the warehouse ready to go, and then last minute canceled and never put them out and never shipped them and never sold them. So they're just rotting in storage somewhere. There's a chance something like that could happen, but I'm pretty much convinced that we are getting a mobile Xbox console as well as a traditional Series X successor. It makes perfect sense. The market is ripe and juiced for it. Like, even if it wasn't a next gen handheld, but like a kind of like a gateway or like an in between gen, like instead of like a pro, it was like their handheld was their quote pro announcement. I would buy that day one. I love my cloud device. So if I could be able to play my own games natively on a Xbox handheld, whether it's this gen or next gen, I'm day one. Like I really, really want one. So, and that would be in addition to a Series X successor, which I would also be interested in. So, I think that's what they're going to do. The writing's on the wall for it. And this ties back into feedback, but did you see the thing, speaking of, following the market and everything, where they're reaching out to developers now to find out why they aren't on Xbox and how they can help?
Yeah, I briefly saw that, so if you can go into detail because I didn't get the chance to read it.
Sorry, took a sip of coffee. Basically, they've you remember how when they were first launching the BC program and some of this other stuff, they put feedback stuff where people could reach out and vote on things they wanted, or feature suggestions or updates or content things that people wanted. Well, now they've put out this new developer thing through they've partnered with Microsoft's research team, as of the whole Microsoft, not just Xbox, to try to understand better the situations various developers face and why their games are on Xbox or why they're not on Xbox, and how they can better work with them to get their games on Xbox. So, better late than never, and I'm glad they're doing it, and hopefully it leads to less situations where you have a developer angry tweet and then it blows up into a bunch of articles. Everybody gets mad at Xbox for a week or two, and then it gets fixed in something that could have been an email. And hopefully we just get more Xbox games going forward, and it's just not a deal anymore.
Yeah, I think Microsoft's problem in a lot of aspects is, feedback tools like hell. Up right now, they have the most powerful console on the market, and some developers don't, they don't use the power. Maybe they don't have the right tools, that all that stuff, and especially with the new hardware coming out down the line, that I think their feedback from like this piece of hardware we have right now, it should be crystal clear. They need to just improve messaging, messaging with developers, with the fans. Messaging is basically key at this point. Before we close out the show, since we're talking about hardware, I do think it's funny how for 4 years we've been told, technically 5, we've been told that power doesn't matter. We shouldn't be comparing resolution and frame rate for games anymore. Uh, the PlayStation 5 Pro comes out next month, I think, or something like that. Like, we're gonna see people start touting power again. Those people will start talking about power. I put it like this: every single generation we've ever had, when the console's about to come out, do you know what people are excited about? Power. This was the only generation ever, where as the consoles were about to come out, people shifted away from talking about power for a brand new generation and what games would look like, went to start talking about SSDs and IO throughput, right?
It
Just
sounds like a disease.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like a bad itch, but like that's where people shifted it, because PlayStation didn't have the power narrative this time, so people switched to magical SSDs, right? And now those people that were talking about magical SSDs and IO throughput are now talking about PS5 Pro power, PS5 Pro PSSR, and 8K. It's not going to do 8K, but 8K, 40 frames per second, 60 frames per second, or whatever. Like, these people are now talking about power to the point where, like, it's frankly boring. Xbox's main problem for years was their roadmap. They didn't have one. They didn't have enough studios to have a roadmap, and now they do. That's why everyone in the Xbox community basically talks about games, right? It's all game talk, new games coming out, roadmap for this year, next year, and beyond, all that stuff. Yeah, the teraflop thing's going to come around again, and they're going to have the floating point teraflops where there's like double, but it's not. My God, I'd want to slam my head into the wall.
Remember velocity architecture too? Remember that term, buzz term for a while?
Yeah, it's all buzz terms at the end of the day, but it's just like, it's funny how we can only talk about power when Microsoft's not involved. Remember how we used to get Digital Foundry videos comparing every single game, and then the Xbox One X came out, and it just seems like we didn't get them that often anymore. Like, it just seemed that way. But yeah, the power narrative is going to swing. But at the end of the day, I think that might actually benefit Microsoft, because developers will be more, they might actually push the Xbox, want a Series X to what it can do, because again, some developers aren't pushing it. Anyway, I've been rambling. Look, I've been going on for the past few years about how we don't need a mid-gen refresh. This is before any leaks. I think the whole $700 console, which isn't working, clearly, it's still not sold out. $700 is too much for a console. £700 is blatantly too much for a console. That's $914 without a disc drive or stand, right? Stop it. I don't want this to set a precedent, right? I know I spend a portion every week complaining about price of games, but these consoles should not be $700. They just shouldn't be. The next gen Xbox, do you know what that should be? $500. Not a penny more, no more. And the handheld, I mean, I don't know how you price a handheld. I don't even know how much a Steam Deck costs, but like, they have to be careful with prices. Like, I put it as butter at Tesco, my local supermarket. It shouldn't be £7. It shouldn't be £7. There shouldn't be a security tag on it because, it costs more than £5 or whatever. Like, no, stop it. Like, consoles, and if anyone like Jeff Keighley brings up inflation one more time, people aren't getting paid more for the adjustment of inflation. So that bringing up inflation in gaming makes no bloody sense. None at all. It should be the developers and the publishers and the manufacturers trying to sort their crap out on their end and let us consumers buy it at an affordable price. That goes for consoles, games, expansions, season passes, whatever the hell. Anyway, I've been rambling. Everyone in chat has been awesome once again. We'll be coming back for another episode of All Things Xbox Podcast next week. Logan, it's been great talking to you once again. Again, everyone in chat's been awesome. The links to our socials in the description down below, Twitter and all that stuff. The link to my last video, 20 biggest new games coming to Xbox for this October, is out. Put it out last night. The link is in the description. Highly recommend people watch it. There's a wide variety of games coming out this month. I think a lot of people will be surprised. We've got JRPGs, first-person shooters, basically every genre covered. In fact, there's a bunch of JRPGs coming out this month. Anyway, we'll be back for a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast, same time next week, and I may have another video going live before next show. Anyway, again, everyone in chat's been amazing. We are out, everybody.